Welcome to the BBB Business Shield Series podcast, where we bring together local leaders, business professionals, and security experts to help small businesses stay informed, prepared, and protected. Today's conversation is focused on practical steps business owners can take to strengthen their security and protect what they've built. I'm Rick Myers, founder of Caldera Cybersecurity Services, located here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm a cybersecurity leader and fractional CISO focused on helping small and mid-sized businesses better understand and manage cyber risk. I also serve on the board of directors for the Better Business Bureau of New Mexico and Southwest Colorado, where I'm involved in efforts to make security education more practical, approachable, and usable for local businesses. Let me introduce the rest of the panel. First, we have Erica Genty, is a strategic leader with experience across higher education, healthcare, government, agriculture, and the nonprofit sector. She currently serves as microlearning innovation manager at New Mexico State University Global, where she helps create flexible, skills-based learning pathways aligned with real workforce needs. Erica also serves on the board of directors for the Better Business Bureau of New Mexico and Southwest Colorado, and is passionate about using education, collaboration, and practical solutions to expand opportunity, strengthen communities, and create lasting impact. Next, we have Dr. Minda Brown. She's the director for education at Intelitech College's Albuquerque campus and has nearly 25 years of experience in higher education. She began her career in medical assisting before moving into teaching, program management, and academic administration. A lifelong learner with degrees through PhD level in psychology, Dr. Brown is passionate about education, stress management, and helping individuals and organizations grow. She also serves on several community and education committees, including the Better Business Bureau Board of Directors. Last but not least, our special guest today is Todd Mitchell. He's the owner of Cybersecurity for Biz LLC, a disabled veteran-owned small business. He is a retired U.S. Navy veteran and cybersecurity expert with more than 30 years of experience. Todd is a member of the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework, or NIST CSF, Advisory Board, and holds advanced degrees in cybersecurity policy, IT, and business. He helps solopreneurs and micro businesses achieve compliance and protect their customers' information. Todd also empowers small businesses to stay safe from online threats through preventative focused strategies that help build a cyber-safe culture. He literally wrote the book on cybersecurity for solopreneurs, the Small Business Owner's Cybersecurity Guide, which you can find a copy on Amazon today. Today, we're focused on a group that often gets overlooked in cybersecurity conversations: solopreneurs, micro businesses, and small companies. These businesses may not have a large IT team or big security budgets, but they still handle customer information, payments, email accounts, and business systems that need protection. Todd is going to help make cybersecurity practical and approachable for small businesses by sharing what really matters, where to start, and how business owners can build safer habits without getting overwhelmed. Todd, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Rick. This is an honor. Yes, I'd like to preface, I'm going to go into what I call a core four, but I'll preface that with kind of a little intro of why I think these four items are something that everybody needs to start with. So first of all, Hollywood makes us think that there's, some guy in a hoodie in his mom's basement in Russia or China or something clacking away on a keyboard. The statistics show 92% of data breaches are caused by human error, and 85% of that human error is clicking on a phishing attack. So the reality is your business is at risk because of you and your employees not knowing any better and clicking on some random button or opening something or not doing backups, having weak passwords, things like that. So it's not some hacker on the other side of the planet didn't wake up this morning and go, hey, I need to hack Mindy today and just start writing code for 12 hours. That's not in reality. That's just not what happens anymore. Okay, so preface that. So the core four that I'd like to go over is four things. First is using multi-factor authentication. The second thing is long, complicated passwords. The third thing is keeping your software up to date and you're checking your settings every once in a while. And the fourth thing is identifying and reporting phishing. So multi-factor authentication, the reason why that's number one on the list is, in my opinion, it is the single most valuable thing you can do to protect yourself from your online accounts. So for an example, if your username and password for your bank account gets out there and it's posted on the internet somehow, there's 8 billion people on the planet that have internet access that can get into that account. If you have multi-factor set up and it goes to even the old school simple way where it just sends a text code to your phone, there's only half a dozen people that can get to you and your phone at the same time, and you're probably related to most of them. So you just took your attack surface from 8 billion down to 6. And that is, I don't think there's any other piece of software or any other thing that you can do to keep yourself that magnitude of safer. So I stress that. Use it. Your bank's going to force you to, but the rest of your utilities, social media, work accounts, emails, all that stuff, put it everywhere that offers it, enable it. Get yourself a Google Authenticator app, or have it send in a code to the text, or whatever method you're familiar with or want to use. But just use that, and then you just get in the habit of making sure your phone's sitting next to you when you're on your computer. Okay, strong passwords. This isn't the 90s. Your dog's name with a number 1 on the end of it does not cut it anymore. Your password needs to be 12 to 16 characters long, letters, numbers, symbols, turn it into gobbledygook. It's got to look like a license plate, not a password, right? And avoid anything you can find in the dictionary. I know we've all used Word documents or PDFs where you can hit Control F or find, and you search, you can go to a 200-page PDF, search for the word marketing, and it comes back in seconds and lists every page it found it on. That's how long the bad guys take to crack your password if they can find it in a dictionary. So take that word, like I'll just use like Caldera for an example, just because I'm looking at it on Rick's background. Take the A's, turn it into an, take the E, make it a 3, put an exclamation point on the end. You can't find that word in the dictionary. So now it's still the same philosophy. You just got to mix some stuff up in the middle, and in his brain, his password is still Caldera, so he can remember it. Kind of a situation. Keeping your software up to date. I know it's a pain to get those Tuesday morning restart your computer, thing going on, but take it as a self-induced coffee break and just go, take a break for a minute and wait for it to come back on. If you get behind on those updates, the bad guys figure out how to crack into Windows, and Windows knows this, so they updated their operating system to prevent that. And if you don't get those updates, you're still vulnerable to whatever the bad guys already know how to do to get into your computer. So, and that doesn't just apply for your operating system. Obviously, that's the big ones, keeping Apple and Windows up to date. But that applies to everything. The QuickBooks, the movie viewing little software you have, or anything, your browser, all these things need to stay constantly up to date. If they're not set up to do auto updates and you got to do it manually, make a little appointment with yourself on your calendar every couple of weeks or something to go in there and check for updates or whatever. And then the final thing is identifying phishing emails. Like I said, it's 85%. Literally, statistically, with a bunch of crazy math problems, if we could get people to quit clicking on phishing email, we could almost eliminate data breaches. I mean, it's that prevalent. Not that it would last, because the bad guys would just find some other way, but whatever. But, these don't click on the emails themselves. Just make that a habit, even when it's legitimate, and I'm guilty as charged. Do the same thing. All my clients pay me through Wave. I get these emails all day long talking about, oh, you just got paid. Click here to see the invoice. And I just click the button. And one of these days I'm going to get caught. So what I need to do is see the email, go, okay, yeah, thanks. And now go open Wave on my browser like I normally would and go look for the, that way, if it was a trick, at least I'm in the right spot, and I'd be like, oh, I don't see any invoice over here, but, go to the source. Don't click through the links. Check the address. Where's it coming from? I've gotten links from PayPal talking about a receipt, and you look up the thing, and it came from some email addresses like yujfk@gmail.com or something. And it's like, that's not PayPal. So, and those are the core 4 basic things. I think if everybody, and all 4 of those things I just mentioned, they're free. It takes you 5-10 minutes out of your time and implement that stuff. It isn't going to cost you any extra money. These are all things you can do at work, at home. You get your whole team together, have a party, everybody do it all at once, whatever. But these are the basic core of setting it up.
That's awesome, Todd. When I worked for a municipal government, we just all got in the habit of every Friday we would restart our computers. Is that the same as, because we had auto updates, is that the same thing as updating? Okay. So I have carried that on now several years down the road. Every Friday before I'm done, I restart my computer so that everything updates so that we don't get trouble there.
Yeah.
Question that I have is
well, let me just clarify real quick on that one. So
okay.
Your operating system is going to auto update and force you to restart. The things that you have to do the other restart for, even if you didn't have a restart, browsers and things like that, a lot of times will only check for updates when they're turned on. So if you're one of them people who has 50 tabs open on Chrome and leave Chrome up and running and just put your computer to sleep and wake it up and never actually close Chrome, you're not getting updates. If you
Okay.
close your browser, shut off your computer at night and turn it on the next morning and start from fresh, then you're always going to be on the latest versions. So if you're not one of those people, then yes, you got to restart your computer every Friday or something just to get caught up.
And,
Okay.
and Erica, to your point about restarting, I think we mentioned this in another podcast. We talked about mobile phones, and a lot of times people don't recycle their mobile phones. And for non-persistent malware that hasn't committed itself to the long-term storage on your mobile phone, doing a restart of your phone once a week clears all that out, and you start fresh. So I always recommend, at least once a week, do a restart on your mobile phone just for preventative purposes.
That's awesome.
I'm definitely have 50 tabs open at the same time all the time. So I will work on that.
Todd, why are solopreneurs so attractive for cyber criminals?
Two reasons. One, you don't have any resources, so they know you're more vulnerable. And two is you have almost as much data, collectively, right? So let's say I'm trying to get taxes. I want a bunch of people's social security numbers, and I decided the easiest way to get it as a bad guy was just to get copies of everybody's taxes. Now, I can try to hack H&R Block, but they've got servers, they've got an IT department with 100 people in it that are going to fight me on it and all that stuff. So, and they've got company policies and things like that. So it's going to be hard. Or I can go after 100 individual bookkeepers that don't know anything about security. Most of them think they got Windows Defender running and that's all they need to worry about. And, and I can social engineering through a Facebook post or something, whatever, and trick all of them into clicking some button that gives me access to their computer. And now I got all that information and I didn't even have to hack code and break into a server to do it. And the worst part about it is, as a small business owner, is nobody hears about it. It's actually, they get hacked twice as often as a big business. It's just, you don't hear it. H&R Block gets hacked. It's on the 6 o'clock news feed for 2 or 3 days in a row. You get hacked, nothing, crickets, So it happens. It's very frequent. It's just nobody knows about it because you don't hear it in the news. And you're more susceptible. I mean, the bottom line is H&R Block is going to cost them $50 million to clean up the mess. They write it off as a bad year. You get hacked and it costs you a couple $100,000 and your business is gone. You're done. You're lucky they don't take, at that point, you're really going, glad I'm an LLC and they can't come after my house because my business is gone. And now I'm trying to protect my personal life. And, even if you do recover, your reputation is trash. Who the heck wants to hire the bookkeeper that just got all their clients blasted? So,
And that's not recoverable. I would also tell you one more dimension of why small businesses are targets is because they usually have inroads into larger companies. Take the lawn care service provider. Okay. He's always sending invoices into larger companies because he's taking care of their property. Well, he gets compromised. A malicious email gets sent from his account unbeknownst to him. And that's carrying malicious software that potentially could infect a larger company because they trust it and they let it into their network to read it. So they become a target because they are basically inroads to larger targets as well.
Didn't that happen with Target, that they had a small contract that they were able to get into great big huge Target through?
AC company, yep. AC company had a device that they used to monitor the AC that was on the same network as their POS system that allowed for lateral movement into Target's more critical environments. Now that was a mistake by Target, but they also had a trusted vendor who they trusted and they put on their network erroneously, but they did. And that's what caused it. And I hear that over and over again. There's probably at least 5 to 10 incidents that I get involved in because of some small vendor, landlord, plumber, whatever, getting impacted and sending something into a larger customer.
So what cybersecurity protections are worth paying for solopreneurs? And do they need to have cybersecurity insurance?
I would say definitely yes on the insurance. The other ones, what protections are worth paying for? So myself personally, I'm a cheapskate and I'm the king of finding open source free solutions instead of paying big company prices for a lot of things that may or may not do exactly what you need. But I would say you need to have what they call managed detection and response. So it is well worth, as a business owner, Norton McAfee Windows Defender and a free thingy that comes with Apple, don't cut it. Those are consumer level. They stick something in a folder, call it quarantine, and tell you that it's there. They don't tell you what to do about it. They don't help you do anything with it. So you need a better system. You need somebody managing it on the back end. And if you're a solopreneur and don't have an IT department, then you need to hire somebody like me or Rick or something to do that for you. But you want to have good, strong software that's protected and is what they call EDR or MDR, the buzzword being endpoint detection and response or managed detection and response. The buzzword being response. It finds it, kills it, gets off the computer, plugs a hole so nothing else can get in. You don't want just stick it in a quarantine folder. You need somebody actually doing something about this stuff. Unless you have a whole IT department of people to do that for you, you got to make sure your software is doing it. And then the other big thing to look at is backups and encryption. It's either offered through your operating system. You can go buy your own drive and hook it up and configure it yourself, or there's cloud service ones that, Carbonite and some other big name companies that you can pay as a service and they'll come in and back your stuff up to the cloud for you or whatever. Doesn't matter. You just want to have a backup somehow, right? Every time you see in the news that some big company paid $20 million ransomware attack, I can tell you two things without even knowing what company it is. If you paid for the ransom, you didn't have a backup, because if you had to copy all your data, you wouldn't be paying somebody else to get your stuff back. Bottom line right there, right? And they didn't have a plan on what to do when stuff went wrong, because if they did, they'd be following the plan and reinstalling their backup and they wouldn't have had to pay the ransom. So that's two things that you can do yourself, is make sure you got a good backup and make sure you got a little short checklist of things to do if something goes wrong, how to reset computers, how to get a hold of the backup, how to put it back on, and yeah. Those are the things that I would either pay somebody to do for me or figure out how to do it yourself.
You mentioned encryption. So what is the safest way to store client information and things like that? Because we all have our Excel spreadsheets, we've got all the addresses and phone numbers and all that stuff to keep our brains straight, but that's probably not the safest way for us to store client information.
Safe storage, I'll say this, doesn't matter if it's in the cloud. People all talk about the cloud like it's some ominous thing that's just awesome and always protected and all that. There's no such thing as a cloud. It's just somebody else's computer you're storing stuff on, right? I mean, some of them were built a lot more secure than your computer or whatever. So, but in reality, it's all going to be stored someplace physically on a computer somewhere in the universe. You want to make sure that that storage is encrypted. And by encrypted, it means they run it through a little algorithm. It's similar to when you were a kid and you had the A through Z and the 1 through 24 and you lined it up and go, and you take the word cat and turn it into some numbers so you can pass secret code to your friend without your mom being able to read it or whatever. Same philosophy. Now we use big, long, complicated algebra equations instead of 1 through 24, but it's the same thing. So what you're doing is making your information unreadable. So whether it's on your computer, whether it's in Google Drive, OneDrive, some fancy stuff you're paying for, whatever, Dropbox, it doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that it is protected and encrypted so that it can't be read if somebody gets their hands on it. Second thing is you want to control who has access to that account. Make that stuff where you're the only one that can get to it, or only the people who need it for their job can get into that information so that other people can't get to it. And then having it encrypted so in case they do get to it, they can't read it and do anything with it.
And is that free? Or as a cheapskate, how do I encrypt my stuff without paying a lot of money for that?
So there are free open source tools that you can use to encrypt your drive or encrypt folders or encrypt certain files and things like that. You can pick which one you want to encrypt. There's some very good ones that have been used for decades that are really good. They're free and open source. Quite honestly, they can be a little difficult to figure out how to use if you don't have a tech background. The easiest way is not real expensive, but just about any user on a Windows home laptop, if you click to enable encryption, it's going to send you to a splash page to pay Microsoft $99 one time to upgrade it to Windows Pro, and then you can turn on BitLocker and you got whole disk encryption. You don't have to have a separate password for it because it logs in when Windows logs in and all that stuff. That's the quickest, easiest, simplest, not so expensive way of doing it.
That might be a good method for our solopreneurs and small business owners for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So speaking of Todd, so the solopreneur, is probably using a laptop and they're mobile. They carry it to the coffee shop, they carry it home, they carry it to the office. What's your recommendation of best physical security components or protection against that device being stolen?
Yeah, excellent question. So in the military, because of my military experience, we have this training we get every 6 months called OPSEC, operational security. And you learn things like, don't sit in Starbucks reading classified information. When there are people in line for coffee behind you, you could look over your shoulder and see it, right? As a normal business owner, you don't think of things like that, but you need to every once in a while to stop, take a look at where you're sitting, going, hey, is this the best place to be opening all my patient records if I'm a doctor? So there's that. The other thing is physically securing those devices, with things like having that lock screen enabled so that after 2 or 3 minutes, the screen goes black. You got to use a password to get back in case you did forget and, you go to the bathroom and somebody's looking at your computer when you get back or whatever. This will stop people from getting in when you leave your computer unattended. Having it encrypted, so if somebody does steal it, they can't get the information off the hard drive without the right credentials. And, just kind of keeping a better hold on it, I guess you'd say. Don't leave your phone laying around on the bar, right? When you're out, at a bar hopping on Friday night or whatever. Don't leave your laptop laying in the front seat of your car where somebody could break the window and snatch it and run, things like that. So just kind of, general common sense security as far as that goes. But encryption and access controls, I mean, that's how you protect data, no matter whether it's on a phone, a laptop, or in the cloud. It's making it unreadable to anybody who doesn't have access and controlling who has access. Those are the key thoughts that you can kind of put in. And as far as like you're saying, laptops sitting in Starbucks or whatever, the other thing you want to worry about is your Wi-Fi. If you're in a hotel lobby, airport, Starbucks, McDonald's, whatever, the library, free Wi-Fi, use a VPN. Make sure you've got that little encrypted tunnel inside of somebody else's generic unsecured Wi-Fi. If you're work from home, you may want to use that anyways, because a lot of us working from home, you got TVs, PlayStations, doorbells, alarm systems, all kinds of crap that, is not secure. And if people ask why in general, I can say that all that stuff is not secure, think back to an earlier conversation we just had a few minutes ago. How often have you restarted your Windows computer for security patches? When's the last time anybody sent you an email and asked you to restart your Ring doorbell for a security patch? Never happened.
Never happened.
Whatever was wrong with it 5 years ago when you bought it is still wrong with it. So do you want to be doing people's taxes on your home desk or your home computer or on your work computer while you're sitting at home and doing people's taxes, for a living on the same computer, the same network router that has all that other junk on it? No, separate that off. Use the guest network, change the password, make it your own little work private network, or use a VPN or something like that.
As a non-tech person, how do you acquire a VPN?
There are several ones that I know the big name ones, so I'm not endorsing any of these by any means. Just NordVPN, Proton has a VPN. I'd be surprised if McAfee and Norton didn't have something along those lines too. So chances are whatever you're using for an antivirus probably has a VPN option as well. If not, you can just go buy NordVPN as a standalone product. They're like $3 a month. It's not that expensive. It's software. You install it. If you get the right plan, you can put it on multiple devices. So you can stick it on your laptop and your phone or whatever. You just turn it on when you don't trust the Wi-Fi network, or you can just have it on all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's talk AI real quick, because that's like the buzzword going on right now. Does it create cybersecurity risk for solopreneurs, and how can solopreneurs safely use AI without exposing sensitive information?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And you're right. Matter of fact, just before this meeting, the last one I was in, we were talking about AI for about half of the meeting. AI itself doesn't really pose security risks. It's how you use AI that can pose the security risk, right? The biggest security risk with AI is going to be a data breach. AI not being, you putting your client's personal information in there, and AI not being smart enough to not spit it back out in appropriate place and time and cause a breach, right? So I always tell everybody, when we say AI, we generically call everything AI. There's actually two different kinds of AI. You'll hear it called black box or custom learning modules. So there's an agent you can load on your computer or on your hard drive or on a server or something and have it kind of in-house. And then there's I went to chatgpt.com or, claude.com or whatever the heck it's called, and go online, right? So if you're on the public version, you definitely never under any circumstances want to put somebody's personal information in there. Right. Just for an example, Mindy, on her as a doctor and a psychologist, so she's putting psychology notes in there and having it run some comparison of 5 adult males, blah blah blah, and see what the you do not want to be putting anybody's personal information in there when you're on the open free one. Now, if you've got one running internal to your company that nobody else can get to and it's just yours, then you're a little bit safer to do that kind of stuff. So basically knowing what kind of AI tool you're using and keeping it, keeping personal information out of it, especially if it's open to the public.
And I'll mention we hear a lot about OpenClaw, and people are experimenting with OpenClaw. And I'll relay one story where somebody was using a business sanctioned OpenClaw instance, had it hooked up to their email, and unbeknownst to them, OpenClaw decided to send an email to all that person's clients without any instruction. So it actually took a little bit of an autonomous type of action. It wasn't nefarious in terms of what it sent. It just was doing what it thought it should do to reach its goal. And so that's the danger of using AI without really understanding how to set boundaries and guidelines, with using these tools. They're great, believe me, but have education around how to use them safely. Okay. Or
Right.
not expect it to not send your customers, emails in the middle of the
Yep,
night.
exactly. And that's the danger. That's the real danger. If you have I talk to people about this all the time. If I'm on a doctor's website and it's got some little chat bot and I put in my symptoms and it's like, oh, you might have this or that, and I challenge it and say, give me proof. Is it going to shoot out somebody's medical record at me and tell me their age, name, address, social security number, patient ID number, this and this happened, here's the x-ray, we fixed it with this, as proof? Or is it going to say, sorry, I can't tell you any of that because of HIPAA? How did you train this thing? What's it going to do? And that's the kind of the dangers of AI. And the biggest risk, I guess, would be especially as solopreneurs and individuals in general, we're very naive about AI and how it works. We went to ChatGPT and we do stuff. We have no idea who trained it, how they trained it, or where it sits,
Right.
or what information it can pull from to give me an answer. And as time moves forward, we need to start finding out those answers, especially on the business side of the house. Before you let this thing start doing jobs in your business, you really need to know how it was trained and where it's getting its sources and what it has access to.
If you could give every solopreneur one cybersecurity rule to live by, what would it be?
Multi-factor authentication for everything. And as a general rule, think before you click.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right. Well, we're coming up to time. So I want to thank you, Todd. Thank you to the panel for sharing your time, your insight, and practical guidance for solopreneurs, micro businesses, and small companies today. Cybersecurity can feel overwhelming, but today's conversation reminds us that protecting a business starts with simple, intentional steps. To our listeners, thank you for joining us at the BBB Business Shield Series podcast. We hope this discussion gave you useful ideas that you can put into action right away, like today, to better protect your business, your customers, and your community. We also encourage you to stay connected with the Better Business Bureau of New Mexico and Southwest Colorado for more resources, upcoming conversations, and the Security Expo sponsored by the BBB coming up in mid-October. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in the future Business Shield Series events. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.